Sekeres Price from Wall Center and a presentation, Applewood Auto Group.
And if you head to the Richmond Auto Mall right now, you can take a look at a couple of different brands in the Applewood family. And there's never been a better time to do it with their 25th anniversary on right now at all the Applewood dealerships, including, yes, Applewood Nissan in the Richmond Auto Mall, Applewood Mitsubishi right next door. Take the Mitsubishi plug-in hybrid Outlander for a little test drive. You might win $25,000 just for doing that. But we think you'll fall in love with them too. And then you'll buy one and you'll get a $2,500 maintenance package at no extra charge. It's all coming up aces for you. Head to the Applewood Auto Group because it's all good at Applewood.
Bodog poll question: What is most important for the Canucks this season? Good health, good start, improved defense, or stars being stars? You can vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter. Bodog, your source, free casino games, poker strategy, and sports odds. Bodog line of the day for me. One with the Detroit Lions on Sunday. They've already got a win in Kansas City. So what's a win in Lambeau against the Packers? It's only Jordan Love. I'm going to lay 1.5 points on Thursday Night Football, your Bodog line of the day. Here he is from UBC, where the Vancouver Canucks find themselves practicing in advance of tomorrow's preseason game in Edmonton. From the Province and Post Media, the one and only Mr. Patrick Johnston. How you doing?
Well, guys, you think you find a quiet spot, and then, of course, you hear people moving ladders around. But I'm doing good. Found myself in the Bauer Arena, Canucks on the ProTrans Arena. All feels very regular and normal.
Right. Those ladders designed to be moved. Ilya Mikheyev is back. He's in a red jersey. Elias Pettersson's in a red jersey. So it looks like Ilya Mikheyev was just set to be left wing on Pettersson's line, although Höglander was taking turns there. But alas, a red jersey means...
When is a red jersey not a red jersey?
I guess that's the question.
Well,
what's the deal? What's the latest?
The claim we've been given. He's actually in a non-contact sweater. Of course, normally they wear gray for non-contact, but here we are. And he did leave. Yeah, I mean, he didn't take part in the line rush. He did some drills. But I guess I was surprised to see him in full red, given that he only skated for the first time at all with these guys on Sunday. But he's on course. It's one of those ones, I think, as I noted at the time, everyone said, "Oh, he'll be back for training camp." But then, if you actually listen to the same time in the same breath, both Patrick Allvin and Dan Milstein last February, late January, said it'll be 8 months, and 8 months was that's actually next week. So, yeah, I think he's more than likely, I don't think he's obviously not going to play tomorrow, probably not Thursday. I'd be surprised if he played Saturday. But I feel like he's on course to get in the game next week.
Yeah, and we'll continue monitoring that. The good news, he's back at training camp and is skating and participating with the main group. Patrick, do you think a 10-0 loss in Calgary will affect the kind of lineup they send to Edmonton tomorrow?
Well, interestingly, no Vasily Podkolzin, no Dakota Joshua here today. Maybe it's maintenance, or something like that. But it does feel notable, given both of them were non-factors in a very, obviously undergunned but underwhelming effort from the Canucks on Sunday. I don't know. We'll see. I found myself wondering. I wrote a bit about this yesterday, and there is a lot you can dig out of it. I mean, obviously, preseason, the Flames had a much better lineup, but 10-0 is still 10-0, and there's a lot of things that didn't go well. There were multiple defensemen who showed poorly. Obviously, Artur Shilovs did not have a good start. But the fact they couldn't generate really any offense. I mean, there's just there wasn't a lot going on in any respect. Like I said, underwhelming lineup. But yeah, I think we're going to see. Rick Tocchet had already said he wanted to get sort of 3 games for all his regular guys, and there's only 5 games left. So, whether it's coincidence or not, I think that lineup we're going to see tomorrow night in Edmonton will be a lot of fun.
Saw a road game for the Leafs last night in Ottawa. Matthews and Marner are there. You are allowed to send guys out on the road. And it does look like they're going to do that once and for all here. I mean, is it safe to say the 4 line rushes that we saw today are going to be the lines tomorrow to prevent McDavid from putting a 10 spot up on the Canucks?
Well, I think what you're more than likely to have, you'll split it. This is almost your split SWAT game here, right? You'll have one lineup tomorrow night. You'll have a different lineup on Thursday. You'll see Pettersson in one place, and you see Miller in the other place. I think that's more likely. That's just how it's always shaked out. Nothing new there. And then, you got some bunch of other guys playing on Saturday, and then basically everybody gets the last 2 games next week. All of a sudden, it's the regular season.
Boom.
Di Giuseppe on left wing with JT Miller.
I saw that.
Brock Besser on the right.
Yeah.
And Beauvillier down with Suter and Garland. Do you think PDG, Di Giuseppe, has enough upward mobility? You think Tocchet likes him enough that we could see him in the top 6?
I mean, you love the energy, you love the effort, but I mean, obviously JT Miller's a good skater, but I think that's a pretty slow line. And that's not really, I mean, it is the up and down. Maybe it's just simply a message to Vasily Podkolzin. This is a guy who plays the way we want you to play, but even better. That was sort of my view. I mean, absolutely, he's always an option, sure. But that's a guy that's going to, if he makes his team as the 13th forward, maybe on the 4th line, he's not a long-term solution.
How about the stacks?
Oh, hold on. You're talking Podkolzin as the 13th forward, or
I'm
Di Giuseppe?
Di Giuseppe, I think, is what I'm saying.
You don't think Di Giuseppe's going to be an opening night, huh?
Well, I mean, if he's on the 4th line, you know what I mean? Like, it's that he's 12, 13 guy. He's not in there as, the guy that's on your 2nd line.
All right.
And if he is, then there's some real questions there, I think.
I'll tell you what. I'll bet you a beer. I think he's beside Suter and Garland, 3rd line opening night.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's different from what I just said, but sure.
No, I understand. But I think Tocchet likes him enough that he's in the top 9, I guess.
Okay. As it stands now, the 3rd line is a bit stacked with Beauvillier and Suter and Garland.
Right.
I think it's more worth your while to do that, spread out the wealth early on in the season and give a guy a try in the top 6 than to go all in, don't you?
Yeah, and I think in many ways, to me, that is what remains with Podkolzin. I think he's going to get a pretty long leash here, even if it wasn't very impressive on Sunday. This is a guy they need to make work, and they need to find every way to make work. And if it doesn't work, then they do obviously have big problems. But he is someone that given everything, given his age, given his apparent skill set, given his salary, he's a guy that you want in your roster, on your lineup. You need him contributing, and if he doesn't, that's just that will be a problem that they'll have to figure out.
Will Höglander be on that same length of leash or shorter?
Well, I mean, he showed so much more. I mean, I don't think the leash is as long there though, because of the sort of the quality of play that Pettersson and Kuzmenko can drive. Can you actually? I mean, I was just watching a drill with him, and there were a couple of moments where I'm like, I'm still not sure he's sort of processes the game quickly enough. Like there was a 2-way kind of tap play that Pettersson, I think, really wanted to have happen, and Höglander just couldn't. He just, it didn't happen. And that's just the reality of playing with Pettersson. He's hard to play with, and he's easy to play with. You have to play at a high level, but keep your stick on the ice, and just, if you can do it, you can do it. And if you can't, well, you're going to end up somewhere else. And I think Höglander is going to be in this lineup. I think he's already shown enough, and I think the progress that he's shown and the way he plays and the way he finished last year, he's going to get a look. But whether it's with Pettersson or not, totally.
Studnicka is skating right line with Bluger and Oman, who's skating on the wing on the 4th line. Chances Studnicka could be there on opening night as a 4th liner.
I don't know. I mean, I had written him off a little bit in training camp when you see him skating with a couple AHLers, but I think there's still some. I mean, obviously shoots right, like that always helps. Oman was actually not great on faceoffs last year. Teddy Bluger was brought in as a bit of a centerman to win some draws. That line has been sort of in their drill. I mean, the drill was a little bit trying to just make the puck, carry the puck up the middle of the ice, but they kept rotating through. Like no one was the obvious winger, or no one was the obvious center. The fact he has some flexibility there, I think, is an appeal. And obviously, they traded for him because they liked the potential there. There was a player that Patrick Alvin, I remember when we interviewed him in Seattle last October when they picked him up. Like he was a player that he was quite clearly happy to pick up. He's a player that he finds interesting. Now, obviously, Studnicka didn't show us the whole time last season. But new year, fresh season. You're up against it. I think he's a guy that knows the game. He hangs around. He knows what's going on, and he's a guy that knows where he's at, and that it's very much getting to make it or break it time for him.
Players have different attitudes than when they're called up mid-season, right? Like when they feel like they have the coach's eye for a sustained amount of time during a training camp, they feel like they do have a new lease on life probably and feel like, okay, now's my time. I see that door open a crack. I'm going to try to open it further, right? Right,
exactly. That's it. And then in the end, it becomes, can you do it or not? And that's the reality of the level. And there's lots of guys that have tried, and there's lots of guys that have not been able to make it work. And now's the time for him to show he can make it work.
Cole McWard paired with Quinn Hughes today. I mean, I can't imagine that's the thing when we get going for real. But Ian Cole with Philip Hronek yet again today.
Yeah.
And we're wondering if that's a tip of hand that'll be the second pair.
Yeah, I mean, it's him or Susie. You know, it's one or the other. It is an interesting one. What's going to happen on Hughes's right? I am surprised it is as much of a question mark as it appears to be. I mean, the joke going around on the weekend in Victoria was, is every defenseman in camp going to get a turn with Quinn Hughes? You know, there were 20 guys to start with, and we're down to 7. I know there's some guys sit down today. You know, we're down to 15 or so. Yeah, Cole McWard certainly has interesting long-term potential. You know, Adam Foote said to really like him a lot. But he's a guy that I think needs some time in the AHL. I don't really think he's making the NHL right away. I mean, he did obviously play here last year, scored a goal, and you could see the potential. But it is an interesting one to shake it out, and that is the big question that I continue to look for is how is this all going to break down? You guys are going to probably more quickly eliminate themselves than win the spot. And that is not exactly the most convincing way to go at things. You know, there's this notion that Tocchet brought up, I think, on Friday, that it could just be a committee job, that Hughes just finds himself playing with everybody because they're just getting Hughes on the ice as much as they can. They're getting Hronek on the ice as much as they can, and they'll just run with it, which isn't certainly how we conventionally think about how hockey teams organize themselves. But, you know, there are other sports where it is like, hey, let's get these guys on the ice and everybody else can figure out the rest. And certainly in the early going, it feels like it's going to be like that. Maybe someone will emerge that makes sense on that right side. But right now, it's very much a question mark for me.
You've got the bodies. Why don't you just trot guys out? You do have some time now. You got a full 2 weeks before you really have to make the final decision. You know, see if you can catch lightning in a bottle with somebody. I doubt it's going to be McWard, but I don't blame him for trying.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Hughes, as I've said many times, is that he is not like anything we've seen before. He's, defenseman is what he stands, where he stands when he starts for a face-off. But then everything else is something else, right? Like he's a midfielder, he's a rover.
Yeah.
You know, he's playing a position that is. Hockey is so caught up in their sort of old, positions that were set out 100 years ago, and things have evolved. And you look at other sports, and they have different names. Basketball has changed all the names for all the positions. Soccer describes what the player does versus where he stands. Hockey is a bit funny that way, that we don't have a term for a guy like Hughes. But to me, that is what he's become. Is he's a guy that I think he's just. It feels like he could just be a guy, like I said, he gets on the ice and then whoever else is on the ice and they just have to adapt. And, Quinn's driving the bus. He is a guy that they want to have the puck on his stick, and they want other players adjusting. And they're trying to, the idea on the power play that we sort of saw on the weekend that they're going to rotate through all these different spots depending on what the situation is. I'm wondering, and we saw a little bit of a drill here where it looked like the forwards were really just rotating through the spot. It wasn't I'm a center, I'm a winger, I'm a left winger, I'm a right winger. It was I'm in this space, I'm in that space, and we're trying to push the puck in a certain way and try to keep teams off balance. And I think, if that's an approach you're going for, I think it's worth trying.
I just saw on Twitter, by the way, that Tocchet has said he's going to play in a 1-1-2-1 tomorrow formation. So I think it's starting.
Did he take that from Vanny?
I think he might have. Well, Vanny plays Christmas Tree, the opposite. So yeah.
And while we're at it, have they changed the names of positions in basketball, or do we just play positionless basketball?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, but you know what I mean. We talk about
yeah.
But you're right. Positionless basketball. I mean, basketball's figured it out. It's to have the skills and get it done. I mean, hockey, in many ways, I think that is a future we're trending towards.
Yeah. Well, just so long as we have a modern left back who can get forward.
Exactly.
Answer me the Bodog poll question. What's most important for the Canucks this season? Good health, good start, improved defense, and I just don't mean the 6 defensemen. I mean overall. The penalty kill as well. Yeah, team defense. Or stars being stars, or feel free to go off the board.
I think it's a good start. I mean, that covers everything. A good start means that you're ahead of the game, you're leading the way, you're not chasing the game, you're not putting yourself at risk of injury. It means your stars are playing well. It means you're defending well. It means your goalie's playing well. Yeah, absolutely. Good start is what they need the most.
Brilliant stuff, Patrick. Thank you for this. Appreciate you finding a quiet nook and cranny there at UBC.
My pleasure, guys.
We will catch up with you next week.
Okay, take care.
This Sekeres and Price clip brought to you by Applewood Auto Group. And remember,
it's all good at Applewood.